The EU is creating a new migrant policy for all of Europe in the hopes that Europe will be better able to handle this new coming migrant crisis. The plan is still in the works, but as of right now, the plan contains words like mandatory solidarity of all of the member nations of the EU. The EU is doing this to take off some of the pressure that Greece is facing, since Greece is taking in most of the migrants coming into Europe these days. But will it work to force countries into taking more migrants in who already made a decision not to take in more people? The EU has been criticized for overextending its authority the last time around back in 2015, so now they're approaching the issue slightly differently. This time around, they want countries that refuse to take in any more migrants to pay other countries for taking those migrants. The problem is that this will be around 10,000 euros per migrant, or around $11,500. That could potentially wreck some countries' economy in these pandemic times. So what exactly is Europe supposed to do with all of these new migrants coming in this new wave? In today's video, we will take a look at what exactly the EU is making these European countries do, and whether or not in the end it will actually help the migrants and the countries involved. Alright guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Soran. So as always, I know the subject of immigration in Europe can be very divisive, so I will do my best to look at both sides of the issue. And so before we get into the first article here, I do want to note that this migrant wave is very different from the one in 2015. This time around, only 1/3 estimated of the actual migrants coming in are refugees fleeing war or persecution in some way or form. The rest, the 2/3, the vast majority, are migrants. These are people seeking a better life. So in its nature, the wave in 2020 is very different than the one in 2015. So the process of this new EU migrant policy has been sped up because this time around Greece is facing an uncontrollable wave of migrants coming in, and there's not a lot of countries in 2020 that are willing to actually help Greece out. It used to be that all of Spain, Italy and Greece would get the majority of the migrants coming in from North Africa and Syria into Europe. But this time around, Greece is not alone, but pretty much they're taking the vast majority of migrants, and Italy is helping out a little bit as well. But Italy and Spain has successfully implemented new laws against illegal immigration. So they're cracking down on migrants coming into those countries, especially because they're suffering as much as they are financially from the pandemic. Now Greece is trying to do the same thing, but they haven't been as successful in actually enforcing these new laws. So they pretty much have the same laws in place, but they haven't been able to enforce it in the same way. At the same time, Greece has had a huge fire within one of these migrant camps in the island of Lesbos in Greece. Now, Germany and France have decided to step in and help out with a big part of these migrants that now no longer have a home. They're just living on the road, and Greece has no more space to put these thousands and thousands of migrants. So Germany and France have decided to help out with at least 1,500, and a lot of young people also going to Germany, around the same number going to France. This has been led by Macron and Merkel, who are very at the top of the EU, who has been leading the charge for taking in more migrants over the last many years. But there are a lot of other countries in Europe who are very much against taking in what they see as too many migrants. I'm going to show you a short video of a Hungarian politician who's speaking on this issue in the EU policy talks of the migrant policy yesterday. I'm going to show you this politician specifically because he represents pretty well a whole lot of nations within Europe who have the same mentality about migrants. So take a look at what he has to say here.
The position of Hungary has been crystal clear since 2015. We say no to illegal migration. We say no to the relocation and the quotas. Nothing has changed in that sense. We reject these notions. And what we continue to believe is that those who have no right to stay in the EU must be taken back to where they came from. If that is going to be part of the new Migration Pact, that will be something that we will accept. But let's wait and see.
All right, so Balázs, the guy you just heard from, is saying no to the EU imposed quotas, where the EU is deciding exactly how many migrants and refugees the different countries are supposed to take in. So he's saying no to all of that. He is open to the idea of relocation as long as it is not within his own country. He is open to the idea, like most of these countries who's against migration, is open to the ideas of actually sending the migrants back safely to the countries they came from, and possibly paying a certain fee for every migrant you send back. That is the sentiment of a lot of these European countries that are against uncontrolled, as they see it, uncontrolled migration. So this article from Euronews talks about all of that, and it also brings into light some of the details about the new EU Migration Pact. It says, new policy aims to increase member state contributions. The European Union has unveiled a long-awaited migration pact aiming to streamline the asylum process among member states to fix what EU leaders acknowledged was an ineffective system. The new pact aims to better share the burden of relocating asylum seekers by allowing member states to contribute by instead returning individuals who do not qualify for asylum or providing logistical support. EU leaders also hope to create faster border screening processes at the external borders. So some of the bullet points of the new EU policy talks is that how these member states can pay up to 10,000 euros or $11,500 for each migrant. Instead of taking them in, they can then relocate these migrants into their own countries or into other EU member states who are willing to take the money and then take the migrants as well. But that is a staggering price for countries who already have said no to taking in more migrants, who doesn't want anything to do with it. Now having to pay tens of thousands for every single migrant. That is a lot of money on a lot of countries who already are struggling a lot in these pandemic times. The article goes on to say, migration policy has historically been a thorny issue in EU politics, and it's possible the new Migration Pact will be a hard sell for the European Commission. The process has been a delicate balancing act of getting countries who have been averse to mandatory quotas like Poland, Hungary, and Austria to accept migrants, and supporting southern countries like Greece, Italy, and Malta in dealing with people arriving on their shores from the Mediterranean. So obviously these countries have different takes on how to deal with this whole crisis. But especially over the last few days, it's been very difficult for the EU politicians to convince these member nations who say they won't have anything to do with it. It's been very difficult because they've sent out some conflicting messages. Take a look at this video.
There is no mandatory quotas for relocation in no circumstances in our proposal. But there could be quotas, but then you can choose between relocation and return sponsorship.
So that was from the talks yesterday. And you see what she's saying here, right? She's saying that under no circumstances will there be any mandatory quotas for countries to relocation, right? That's what she's saying. But then she goes on to say that there might actually be some quotas for relocation, or she goes on to say another funding or something. Let's just play it one more time.
There is no mandatory quotas for relocation in no circumstances in our proposal. But there could be quotas, but then you can choose between relocation and return sponsorship.
Ah, yes. I don't know. So, to be fair, she's obviously addressing this issue of these member nations that do not see it as their problem, that she's saying instead of relocation, you guys will be able to give some funding and then we will relocate these migrants into other European nations who will take them or send them back to the countries when it's safe where they came from, right? That's basically what she's saying. But it's a really hard sell when you consider that these countries are already nations who said that we won't have anything to do with it. It's basically not our problem. So it's really hard for the EU to sell this to these very specific countries, right? Also, ever since the 2015 migrant crisis, a lot of these member nations within the EU felt like the EU was overreaching with its authority. It felt like they shouldn't have forced these member nations to take in that many migrants. They should have let it be up to the individual countries or the people within the countries. But the EU took charge. They made these quotas mandatory, and the countries couldn't really decide for themselves. So ever since that, a lot of trust has been fading away with people in individual countries when they look at the EU. They trust the EU when it comes to promoting democratic values, spreading prosperity and all of these things. But they don't trust them as much when it comes to keeping within their given authority. And that is a bad sign. So let's wrap up this video with the end of this The Guardian article. It talks about a very real issue about these migrants who come into Europe seeking a better life but then are sent back again. It addresses that and it says, in 2019, 491,000 people were ordered to leave the EU, but only 29% were returned to their country of origin. Johansson said 100% returns is maybe not doable, but there was significant room for improvement here. While improving returns has been a goal of EU policy for years, the Commission hopes to inject impetus by appointing a returns coordinator to help member states. One NGO accused Brussels of giving in to anti-migration governments. The Commission has bowed to pressure from EU governments whose only objective is to decrease the number of people granted protection in Europe, said Marissa Ryan, the head of Oxfam's EU office. And that's the whole problem in a nutshell right there. There are so many countries and nationalities within Europe and even within the individual countries that it's difficult to ever get to a point where people agree on this issue. It's a really tough issue because most people obviously want these migrants to have a safe and a better life, but you can see both sides of the problem here. Some of these countries want to be the good neighbor that takes in people, that just want to help as many people as you can, and it comes from a good place. But other countries are just facing the fact that they can't take in any more people. If they do, it will just crush their economy in a time where they already struggle under the pandemic, which most countries do, right? Spain and Italy used to take in a lot of immigrants, a lot of migrants from all over the world. But now they've been reducing that drastically because they recognize that if they keep taking in the same amount of people while being under such pressure economically, it could crush them in the end. And then you won't have this beautiful country where people can gradually come in, more and more people can come in, like Spain and Italy and Greece, right? This whole issue reminds me of the story of the Titanic when it began to sink and all of these people jumped into the lifeboats. Some of these people in the lifeboats sailed away because they recognized the limits of the lifeboat, but other lifeboats sailed towards the drowning people that didn't have any boats to climb onto. So when they came into this bunch of people drowning in the water, some of them began climbing up, and they realized that they were just picking up too many people, so the boat itself began to sink. So some of the stories report on how some of these lifeboats that tried to help more people ended up sinking. Some of them did survive, and some of them were thrilled that they were actually picked up by a lifeboat when they couldn't actually do it because the requirements, you can only have a certain amount of people within the lifeboat. So I can understand both sides, and I don't think it's difficult if you're reasonable about it. I don't think it's difficult to understand both sides of the issue. I'll leave my opinion for now, but I would like your opinion in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to respond to you. I always enjoy interacting with you guys, so leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like the video. It always helps me out since I'm a small channel. If you really want to help me out and you found the information in the video useful, please share this video on your social media. That helps me out the most, since the mainstream news has kind of taken over the recommended section of my videos. It really helps me out, and it helps the information get out to more people. So thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless.